So how do you file a workers' compensation claim on your own? You're injured either physically or emotionally or maybe both, and you feel that it is at least in part due to work. What do you do? How do you file a workers' comp claim? Now more than ever, it is very important that you understand how to file a workers' comp claim on your own. Believe it or not, the workers' compensation system was originally created so you, the injured worker, should have been able to file the workers' compensation claim and see it all the way through. However, over the years, the insurance companies became more involved and were taking advantage of the injured workers, so the injured workers started getting attorneys. And now workers' compensation attorneys are involved even in the simplest of cases. However, the fear of the insurance company fighting your claim should not dissuade you from first trying to file a workers' compensation claim on your own. In many cases, it can often help speed up the very slow workers' compensation process if you file it on your own. However, you need to make sure that you do it properly. Okay, so what does filing a workers' compensation claim even mean? All that you're doing is informing your employer that you have sustained injuries, either physically or emotionally, or again both, that you feel are in connection somehow with your employment. And specifically, you want the benefits that you're entitled to through the workers' compensation insurance. Again, please remember that a workers' compensation claim is simply an insurance claim made against your employer's insurance company. For the types of benefits offered through workers' comp and a further explanation of them, please see my other YouTube videos. Now, with regards to filing your workers' compensation claim, I often get the question, do I have to actually tell my employer that I'm making a workers' compensation claim? The short answer is yes, as they are the insurance carrier, and the insurance company will contact your employer to verify employment and that you actually work there, and to investigate the claims such as whether or not you've already reported the injuries to them. Please remember, you are the innocent one in all of this. You should not be fearful in telling your employer that you want to make a workers' compensation claim for carpal tunnel syndrome that you've developed over the past 10 years for typing. After all, they are making all the money off of your work, and you are simply making a claim for insurance benefits. Again, your injuries can be either physical or emotional. Whatever these symptoms may be, you have an absolute legal right to make a claim for workers' compensation benefits if you feel that these have been caused at least in part by work. It is very important to note that many people, when they are making their workers' compensation claims, have little to no medical documentation of these injuries. This is obviously not ideal, but it is often the norm in workers' compensation. So please do not let this dissuade you from filing your workers' comp claim. Okay, so back to filing the workers' compensation claim on your own. So if you are comfortable talking to your employer and you have a good working relationship, what I would recommend is that you talk to your human resources department or supervisor and explain to them that you're experiencing some medical symptoms that you think are in connection with work and you would like to file for a workers' compensation claim. At this point in time, they should provide you with what's called the DWC-1 form for you to fill out. Now, if you are not comfortable talking to the employer, maybe you are fighting with them or something like that, you can always go online and Google DWC-1 form or go to my website, larsondauer.com, and download the form. Once you obtain this DWC-1 form, you need to fill it out accurately. If you still have questions after watching this video, please don't hesitate contacting our office. But again, the whole point in this video is to help you do this on your own without the assistance of an attorney. Alright, so I'm going to go through the form right now with you in great detail. Here's what the DWC-1 form looks like. The first portion of the form, number 1, is your name. Please enter your full legal name here. This is the name that you used at work and it shows on your paycheck. Next is today's date, which is located directly to the right of your name. Now please enter the date that you filled out this form. This does not have to be the date that you were first injured, simply the date that you are filling out this form. The next lines are 2 and 3, which is your home address. Please enter your home address. This is where you will receive further information and correspondence about your workers' compensation claim. You will see under your address, there are separate lines for city, state, and zip. After you fill in this basic information, this is where things start to get more complicated and important. Filling in the date of injury, number 4 on this form, is usually the biggest mistake that people make. Please recall my YouTube video, A Practical Explanation of Workers' Compensation. In this video, I explain the 2 main types of claims that you can make in workers' compensation, outside of claims such as death claims. What is a specific trauma claim? A specific trauma claim is the most common type of workers' compensation claim. It is just what it sounds like, something specific that happens to you. Some common examples of specific trauma injuries include involvement in a motor vehicle accident, feeling a pop in your back due to heavy lifting, injuries due to falls from ladder or roof, burns received in a fire. What is a cumulative trauma claim? A cumulative trauma injury is a repetitive motion injury. This cumulative trauma injury develops from repeating the same motions over and over at work. Many common cumulative trauma injury claims include carpal tunnel syndrome, cubital tunnel syndrome, neck pain, lower back pain, often involving sciatic nerve pain, headaches, high blood pressure, cardiovascular issues or heart-related matters, upper gastrointestinal, including acid reflux, lower gastrointestinal, such as IBS, which is irritable bowel syndrome, or hemorrhoids, toxic exposure, hearing loss, skin rashes, sleep issues, sexual dysfunction, urological disorders, psychological and emotional disorders, including stress and anxiety and depression. So again, going back to number 4, the date of injury, you are either going to put the specific date you were injured, or you are going to simply fill in the entire time that you've worked for this employer. Or if the injury was due to the repetitive nature of the job, you are going to put the approximate start date for the employer through the date of your last physical work. This is how a cumulative trauma claim looks written. So for the first example at the top, it shows that you started work on August 1st of 2015, and the last date of physical employment for this employer was August 5th, 2020. Note that the last date here, August 5th, 2020, is usually your last physical date of work prior to filling out this form. Now the next example, it says August 2015 through August 5th, 2020. If you do not remember your exact start date, this is perfectly fine. Just put the approximate month and year and you are fine. Now how do you write a specific trauma claim? This one is very, very obvious, but I still did it for you. Here you would simply put August 5th, 2020. This slide is simply a summary of how each should look after you fill them in on the DWC-1 form. Now there is also a time of injury that is located next to the date of injury, also in number 4. If the injury happened over time, meaning it was a cumulative trauma claim, leave this blank. If it happened at a specific time and you have a specific trauma claim, you can put in the time if you know it. If not, it's perfectly fine to leave it blank. The next is line 5, address and where the injury happened. This is usually your employer's address, meaning where you go every day. However, if you were working somewhere else, maybe you were rear-ended while you were driving to a client's house, simply put as much information as you can. Worst case, you can leave this blank. It is always better to leave it blank if you do not know. This simply plays into the insurance company's initial investigation of your claim. The next is line 6, describe the injury and part of your body affected. This is the most important section. You need to provide a full list of all of your injuries and not simply the one that hurt you the worst on that day. Please look back at the slide, what is a cumulative trauma claim? Include anything and everything that is bugging you that you feel was caused at least in part by work. When I say caused at least in part, I mean that you could have had a prior injury that was aggravated or irritated by your employment. When I say caused at least in part, I mean that you could have had a prior injury with a different employer or maybe the same employer. However, you feel that it has been aggravated, meaning made permanently worse by work, so you are making a new workers' compensation claim for it. Just a quick side note, please remember that just because you're putting body parts down and making a workers' compensation claim does not mean that you have work restrictions that take you off of work. There is a huge difference between making a workers' compensation claim and having work restrictions. Please remember my other YouTube video where I cautioned you about work restrictions. Again, just because you're making a claim for work-related injuries does not take you off of work. The work restrictions or inability to work is what takes you off. For this reason, you always need to be very vocal and communicate with your doctor to make sure that he or she does not give you work restrictions that exceed what you can do at work. Now, if you're concerned that your injuries are becoming worse the more you work, you need to talk to your doctor about it and do what's in the best interest for you. However, this is something that's between you and the doctor, and the workers' compensation case does not take you off in itself. The next line is number 7, Social Security number. They already have your Social Security number because you work for them. However, if you are uncomfortable providing this, or if you're using somebody else's Social Security number, I recommend you leave this portion blank. In my opinion, at this point in time, disclosure of your Social Security number is voluntary. The next line is 8, service by email. I do not recommend that you check this box or provide an email. Make them mail the documents to you. However, it's really your choice. The next is line 9, your signature. Sign the form. This is perfectly fine. All right, so for numbers 10 and on, this is only for your employer to fill out. Do not fill this out. Stop filling out all the form here. Your employer will fill out the remainder of this form and turn into their workers' compensation insurance company. At this point, once you've finished filling out the workers' compensation claim form, you need to make a copy of it and turn it into your employer. Now again, if you don't feel comfortable turning it into a specific person at your employer, maybe you're fighting with them, maybe it's a smaller employer and you're uncomfortable explaining to them your medical issues, then you can always email it or fax it or something like that. You just need to verify that they received it. Please remember, when you are making a workers' compensation claim, you are not suing the employer or the insurance company. You are simply making a claim for insurance benefits for injuries that you sustained as a result of work. If you have more questions and want to know more about workers' comp, please check out my other videos. For example, if your claim is denied, I have a video that explains what that means when your workers' compensation claim has been denied.